I knew my older sister had lived through another life the very second she begged me to step into the palace in her place. Tears welled fast in our mother's eyes. She kept dabbing at her cheeks as she spoke, going on about how gentle and naive my elder sister Leora was. How could someone so soft ever survive the cruel, unforgiving palace walls? One wrong move inside those gates, and you could lose your life. Then my grandmother spoke to me, her voice uncommonly warm and sweet, a tone I'd almost never heard aimed my way. "Eloan," she said, "why don't you take Leora's spot at the imperial court? She isn't built for that kind of life. The intrigues there will eat her alive." Memories of the past life crashed over me in sharp, vivid flashes. Back then, Leora had been promised in marriage to the Marquis of Westhold's heir. The moment she learned I was meant to go to the palace instead, she'd fallen to her knees sobbing, begging our whole family to swap our fates. That I can still hear exactly what they told one another in that room. "Poor Leora is far too innocent," they'd murmured. "If she weds into the Marquis household, that ruthless family will devour her completely, leave nothing behind." Grandmother had given the final word that day. Let Eloan and Leora trade places. They are sisters of the same blood. They ought to look out for one another. What followed was well-known history. Barely a year after Leora entered the palace, she accidentally pinched the emperor while waiting on him. For that single misstep, she was cast away to the desolate cold courtyard. She wasted away there, forgotten by everyone. Meanwhile, I married the Marquis. I won his undivided favor for decades, drowning in endless wealth and status. Tears blurred my vision as I lifted my gaze toward my father, seated in the high main chair of the family hall. My voice shook, even though every part of me already guessed his answer. "Father," I asked, "do you also agree that I should go to the palace in Leora's stead?" He only let out a long, heavy sigh. His tone turned icy, and that cold rolled right over my skin, sending shivers down my spine. "Then that is settled," he pronounced. "The new emperor's temper shifts without warning. Once you set foot inside the palace, you must stay constantly on guard. And if you manage to gain his affection, never forget all the support the Voss family has given you over all these years." I scanned every face around that room. Some wore fake, painted-on concern. Others held total indifference. At that instant, whatever tiny scrap of family love still lingered deep inside my heart shattered completely. Across 2 full lifetimes, I had always been the child this family could throw away whenever it suited them. Fine then. I would make every single one of them regret ever bringing me into this world. Let me tell you about the Voss household. There were 3 daughters born to our line. The eldest legitimate daughter was Leora. People described her as warm, generous. But truth be told, her looks were plain and unremarkable. Our youngest sister, little Mara, was bright-eyed, sweet, and only 8 years old. And me, I was Eloan, the second daughter. My appearance stood out sharply against the rest of the family. I carried striking, head-turning beauty. Because Leora had never been pretty, the elders doted on her endlessly. Any fine treasure that came into the house went straight to her first. Only once she had picked over everything with the leftovers passed down to me. That rule held true for food, fabric, jewelry, every small comfort of daily living. Even marriage followed that same unfair pattern. In my past life, Leora had been formally betrothed to the heir of the Westhold Marquisate. But she craved the glory of palace life. So my family traded our destinies, sending me off to wed the Marquis while she took my place for imperial selection. Later on, when the emperor grew tired of her, she got exiled to the cold courtyard. Within months, sickness took her life. After her death, everyone in my household convinced themselves Leora had suffered for my sake. All the honor and favor I enjoyed as Marquis wife, they whispered, should have belonged to her. But things unfolded differently this time around. Originally, it was Leora who was supposed to enter the palace. Everybody knew the new emperor was volatile, prone to fits of cruelty. Serving him meant dancing between life and death every single day. Haunted by all the agony she'd endured in her previous life, Leora would rather die than step through those palace gates. Even so, my own flesh and blood family made their choice without hesitation. They would sacrifice me to take her place. I sat before my vanity mirror, staring at my own stunning reflection. A faint, knowing smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. From this moment onward, I would no longer be the compliant daughter they could push around however they pleased. The door creaked open. Mother walked in, Leora trailing right behind her. Mother frowned the second she saw me still sitting in front of the glass. You leave for the palace at dawn tomorrow, she said sharply. Get some rest. You cannot show up looking worn and haggard. If you do, the Emperor might take a dislike to you. I caught Leora's eyes in the mirror. One eyebrow lifted. A quick, almost invisible spark of satisfaction flickered across her features, that she was thinking about the past life. Back then I had gone to the Marquis estate instead of her. I had held the Marquis exclusive favor for decades. Until the day he died, no other woman stood beside him. He never took a single concubine. Leora dreamed of having that perfect husband all for herself for the rest of her days. No wonder she felt so triumphant. What she failed to understand was this. Lord Kale, the Marquis heir, felt no desire for women at all. Within his household, a wife was nothing more than decorative furniture, a tool meant only to bear children. All that fondness, all that special treatment the world saw, it was nothing but a show for outsiders. Leora stepped close beside me. Her hand brushed gently across my cheek, her smile wide and bright. Her skin felt smooth yet cold, just like a venomous snake flicking out its tongue. Danger lurked beneath that soft touch. Goosebumps rose all over my arms. Little sister, you are so lovely, Leora cooed. Once you are inside the palace, you are certain to win the Emperor's heart. You will bring great glory to the Voss family. Thank you for your kind words, sister, I answered her evenly. In return, I wish you a lifetime filled with love and joy in your marriage to the Marquis. Leora sat up straighter and let out a soft, self-satisfied laugh. Of course I will. Looking at her smug face, I sneered quietly inside my own head. A lifetime of misery was far more likely for her. Come now, Leora, Mother said. Let us leave. Do not disturb your sister while she tries to sleep. Mother turned to walk away, leading Leora by the hand. Mother, I called out. She spun back toward me. Her brows were knotted tight, impatience written all over her face. What is it now? She snapped. Have you started to regret this? My eyes filled up with tears. I gazed at her, holding onto a thin thread of desperate hope. Just say right now that you cannot bear to part with me, I said softly. Tell me you love me too. If you can bring yourself to say that, I will forgive you everything. If she had only spoken those words, if she had just pulled me into a hug in that moment, I would have forgiven every wrong they had done to me. That instead her voice turned sharp and hurt. Why bring this up at this late hour? Are you having second thoughts? How selfish can you be? This is your older sister we are talking about. You cannot even do this small kindness for her. I have raised you for nothing. I tilted my head backward, drew a deep breath, and forced back the tears threatening to spill over. Mother, you may go. I will go to the palace tomorrow. Mother wiped her own tears away. She gave me one long, searching look, then turned and exited the room. Deep down, she had expected exactly this outcome. I thought back to when they first told me I must take Leora's place in the palace. I had fought against it then. Now I had been granted a second chance at life. All I wanted was to finally live for myself. I refused to become Lord Kale's pretend wife. And I most certainly did not want to serve a cruel, unpredictable emperor. I dropped to my knees on the floor. Sobs racked my body, making it hard to draw breath. I had begged them. I told them I would happily give Leora my spot with the Marquis. Just please, I had pleaded, do not send me into that merciless palace that swallowed people whole. Mother had turned her face away, refusing to glance in my direction. Grandmother's expression twisted with disgust. When I reached out to clutch the hem of her robe, she kicked my hands away. Only 8-year-old Mara, my youngest half-sister, cried so hard she could barely breathe. She threw her small body around me where I knelt on the ground. Grandmother! Mother! Mara had screamed. Do not send second sister to the palace. If she goes inside, she will die. Elder sister says the emperor kills people. Mother's expression hardened completely. She lifted her palm and struck Mara hard across the cheek. Be quiet. Mother shouted. Do you wish to get our whole family killed? Spreading lies about the emperor? Guards, lock this child in her quarters. Nobody is to release her without my direct order. Mara was dragged out of the room, shouting over her shoulder. Second sister. Second sister. Do not cry. I will help you. I replayed the memory of her tear-streaked, snot-stained little face, and a sad smile tugged at my lips. My personal handmaiden Cora stepped forward. She brushed a stray tear from my cheek and tucked the edge of my blanket neatly around me. Do not dwell on these things, young mistress. Try to rest. With those words she turned, quiet sobs shaking her shoulders, and blew out the candles. I closed my eyes, but sleep would not come. Time slipped by. Then I heard faint, almost silent sounds drifting in from outside my window. Second sister. Second sister. It is me. I have come to get you away. That was Mara's voice. My heart jumped. I scrambled out of bed and pulled the door open. Mara wore only a thin jacket. Her small cheeks burned bright red from the cold night air. Hurry, second sister. Get dressed. I am here to rescue you. She rubbed her little hands together, trying to warm them. I cupped her cold face between my palms. You were locked up. How did you escape? Mara tilted her rosy face upward. I snuck out while the woman guarding me fell asleep. Pack your things quickly. If we wait any longer, she will notice I am gone, and we will never get away. She spoke with such earnest, innocent conviction. A heavy, sorrowful feeling washed over me. Mara's birth mother had died the moment she came into the world. Even though mother raised her under our roof, Mara's days in this household had always been difficult. Yet this little girl, who barely scraped by herself, risked everything to pull me out of despair. Meanwhile, the people I was supposed to hold dearest treated me like nothing more than a disposable tool. I held her small frame tight against mine. My voice cracked with emotion. Little one, your second sister is going to the palace. I cannot run away. Confusion washed over Mara's face. In the blink of an eye, her eyes flooded with fresh tears. Are you afraid running away will bring trouble down on father and mother? But elder sister told me the palace is full of monsters that eat people. If you go inside, they will devour you. You must run. I do not want you to die. I shook my head and gave her a gentle, sad smile. I will not die. I will come back alive to fetch you. We clung to each other that night, and cried for what felt like endless hours. Dawn broke all too soon. When mother pushed my door open, she found both of us with eyes swollen like ripe peaches from crying. You foolish child! Mother roared at Mara. Who gave you permission to sneak over here? Guards! Take the third young lady to the ancestral hall. Make her kneel there and reflect on her misdeeds. She stays there until she has learned her lesson. Then she rounded on me, rage sharp in every word. And you know full well you depart for the palace today. Yet you have cried your eyes raw. What are you grieving over? Two elderly servant women hurried forward to seize Mara's arms. Before they could lay hold of her, I ripped the ornamental hairpin from my hair. I drove its sharp metal point deep into one woman's arm. Blood welled and gushed out when the pin pulled free. The old maid screamed out in agony. Mother stared at me in utter disbelief. She staggered 2 steps backward, her face filled with fury. Have you lost all sense of decency? I stepped toward her, still gripping the hairpin stained red. A cold smile played across my lips. Mother, would you like to test just how sharp this pin is for yourself? All color drained from her face in an instant. She pointed a trembling finger toward me. Tears streamed down her cheeks. You dare speak to me this way, all for her sake? I cannot believe I raised such an ungrateful, disobedient daughter. She sobbed as if her heart were breaking. Once upon a time, those tears would have filled me with guilt. But now watching her cry, I felt nothing but numbness, a cold that nothing in this world could warm. There is no need for that show, Mother. Your tears hold no power over me any longer. Gradually her weeping stopped. The sorrow in her gaze faded, replaced by hard, unfeeling indifference. The palace messengers have already arrived, she said flatly. Hurry and prepare yourself. Do not keep them waiting. I kept Mara pulled close against me. Neither of us moved. We stood locked in that tense silence for a long moment. Finally Mother spoke again. What exactly do you want? I tilted my head, half smiling. I will go to the palace as you wish. But I have 2 conditions. First, split all of the Voss family's assets equally 3 ways. Each one of us 3 daughters receives 1 share. Second, even though Mara was raised in mother's care all these years, she still carries the status of a concubine-born daughter. change her standing, recognize her officially as a legitimate daughter of this house. Our family had no sons. If I did not fight for this, every bit of the family fortune would end up belonging to Leora. My father and mother would never hand wealth over to me or to Mara. There was an enormous gap in marriage prospects between a legitimate daughter and one born of a concubine. Before I left this house, I had to secure a better future for my little sister. Mother stared at me as if she could not believe her ears. Anger bubbled over into bitter laughter. You would push your own mother this far, for the child of some low-ranked servant woman? Aloan, has your conscience been eaten away by wild dogs? I might agree to give you a portion of the family holdings, but do not even dream of elevating Mara. All these resources are meant to support Leora for her upcoming marriage. Looking at her face twisted by rage, my feelings tangled into something hard to name. People always said no mother could truly hate her own child. But my birth mother felt no real love for me. That is fine, I told her. You have the time it takes for one stick of incense to burn to discuss this with father. Once that time runs out, if the Voss household stands accused of deceiving the emperor or defying imperial orders, do not hold me accountable for the consequences. Mother's face burned bright red. She glared at me with undisguised hatred. Why risk bringing ruin down on our whole family for this? What benefit will you gain if the Voss name falls? I let out a cold laugh and held her stare. Happiness. That is the greatest benefit of all. Do you not see that, mother? Our loud commotion had drawn the attention of grandmother and father in the front courtyard. Moments later they burst through my doorway, servants crowding in behind them. Grandmother shuffled forward with her walking cane. Even at my age, I will discipline this unfilial wretch on behalf of her parents. She lifted the cane to strike me, but Mara threw herself forward, putting her own small body between grandmother and me. Grandmother, please do not hurt second sister. The heavy cane crashed hard against Mara's frail shoulder. She cried out in pain and crumpled to the stone floor. Grandmother showed not one flicker of pity. She raised the cane once more to hit me. Rage surged hot inside my chest. I reached out, snatched the cane right out of her grip, and shoved her backward. She lost her footing. Her body crashed heavily onto the floor. A shrill cry tore out of her throat. Her eyes rolled back, and she fainted completely. Father and mother screamed and rushed toward her. Fetch the physician. Quick, call for the physician. I watched all this chaos unfold, and a quiet sense of satisfaction rose within me. Across 2 whole lifetimes, this marked the very first time I had fought back against them. And this was only the lightest of punishments they deserved. In the end, father grumbled and complained, yet he gave in to my demands. Mara's status was rewritten in the family genealogy. She was formally named the youngest legitimate daughter of Voss. The family wealth was split evenly 3 parts, witnessed by the clan elders. I took what rightfully belonged to me. Since Mara was still so young, her portion was placed in the trusted keeping of a respected elder of our clan. Can you leave for the palace now? Father asked, worn out. A triumphant smile crossed my lips. Of course. But know this. My revenge is only just beginning. My dear family, you ought to prepare yourselves. That very same night I entered the palace. I was granted the rank of imperial concubine. I understood clearly. My beauty was my sharpest weapon, and I intended to wield it fully. I would make every single member of my family who had wounded me regret the day I was born. I felt extremely nervous ahead of my first meeting with the emperor. For 2 lifetimes, stories of his merciless, violent temper had been burned into my mind. Still, I knew I had to keep my fear hidden beneath a composed exterior. Warm glow spilled from burning red candles filling our bedchamber. The emperor's hands massaged my soft, delicate shoulders. There was a playful lilt in his voice as he spoke. My beloved concubine, it feels as though you are not fully pleased with me tonight. I gave him a shy smile, but the words that rolled off my tongue even made the emperor's cheeks flushed. I have heard that you can be quite rough, my lord. I was not prepared for that the first time. Try not to be so harsh next time. I had practiced that exact smile hundreds of times ever since I learned I would enter the palace. Confusion flickered across the emperor's face. What did you call me just now? He asked. Erlang. You are my husband, I replied, leaning comfortably against his shoulder as if this were completely natural. Wives call their husbands that way in ordinary households. Among all the court officials and the hundreds of women living within the palace walls, everyone knew how ruthless this emperor could be. 3,000 beautiful women resided in the imperial harem. Every single one admired him, and every single one feared him deeply. No one had ever dared speak to him so openly, mixing gentle affection with gentle complaint. The emperor threw his head back and laughed out loud at how refreshing. Truly, I have never heard anything quite like this. Very well. I accept it. From this night forward, I will be my beloved concubine's husband. I lifted my eyebrows and pressed a light kiss to his cheek. You are the best husband. Now, he said, stepping slightly back to look me over from head to toe. Your given name is Ninger? Before I could answer, he went on speaking. I thought the young woman sent over from House Voss was supposed to be named Leora. I pressed my lips together and dropped my gaze. I put on a show of sorrow. My father and mother did not wish for my elder sister to come to the palace, so they sent me in her place. The emperor paused. One eyebrow lifted, and he chuckled lowly. Do you understand that tampering with the official palace selection list without permission is the crime of deceiving your emperor? I wrapped both arms around his waist and pressed my face to his chest. My voice sounded thick as though I might cry, I know that, Your Majesty. That is why I was so terrified. I did not want to come here at all. When I begged them with tears streaming down my face, they accused me of being unfilial and disobedient. Yet the moment I laid eyes on you, husband, all of that fear melted away. Now I find myself almost grateful for my parents' harsh choice. A single tear fell. It landed on his robe, dampening the fabric right over his chest that I could feel his arms tighten and pull me closer. Why is that? He asked in a deep, rumbling tone. Because you are not as cruel as everyone claims, I whispered. You are kinder to me than my own blood family ever were. I could not tell exactly which of my words had touched him. He said nothing more. He just held me tight for a very long time. Early the next morning, once I had finished washing and dressing, one of the emperor's closest personal attendants arrived bearing an official imperial edict. In just one single night, I rose 2 ranks. From a low-ranking noble consort, I advanced to the station of high-ranked consort. The palace quarters assigned to me were renamed in my honor. 4 days on end, the emperor stayed in my chambers, waning palace. 6 months slipped past. Then overnight, I received another promotion. I became an imperial consort, one of the most prestigious ranks within the harem that every other woman in the palace looked on with envy. All eyes turned toward me. I basked in unparalleled imperial favor. I was the first consort to receive such deep affection since this emperor ascended the throne. Festival day arrived. The Lantern Festival. A grand banquet was held within the palace. Before the feast even began, the female members of House Voss came to my palace chambers to pay their respects. Leora arrived alongside her husband's family from the Marquis household. This was the first time I had laid eyes on any of them since I left my old home, that I leaned back against soft cushions on my couch. Out of the corner of my eye, I watched them file into the room. Leora was 6 months pregnant. Mother and her mother-in-law supported her as she moved slowly, step by careful step. The Marchioness of Westhold leaned close to my ear and spoke softly. Your Highness, if you do not wish to receive these people, I can have them removed. I waved one hand gently. No, let them stay. The group drew near. They knelt down low to offer their formal greetings. I held a fine porcelain teacup in my hand, sipping slowly. I would not so much as glance in their direction. After a short while, Leora's body swayed. She struggled to hold herself upright while kneeling on the hard floor. Mother noticed right away. Her voice was full of concern for her favorite daughter. Eloan, your sister is feeling unwell. One of my court ladies cut her off sharply. How dare you? Within palace grounds, there exists only the bond between ruler and subject. You may not address Her Highness by her given name. Mother trembled slightly. She bowed her head even lower. Still she pushed forward, stubborn as ever. Forgive my rudeness, Your Imperial Highness. The Marchioness consort is unwell at this moment. I beg you to show her mercy. Even now, despite my lofty new station, my mother would fight tooth and nail for Leora. That was the fierce devotion of a mother's love. reserved entirely for one daughter. A cold laugh escaped me. I tilted my chin upward. Sister. Mother says I am treating you unfairly. Is that true? Leora lifted her face. She bit her lower lip. Her expression read as resigned and hurt. Your Highness, you jest. No bad blood exists between us sisters. Though I know you still harbor resentment toward Mother. You have not forgotten how she forced me to enter the palace to serve His Majesty against my will. I offer my sincere apologies on her behalf right now. I beg you to be magnanimous and release that grudge. The other consorts who had come to pay their respects all pricked up their ears. Some looked shocked. Others took quiet pleasure at witnessing this tense moment. Everyone knew I currently enjoyed the Emperor's complete favor. If word spread that I had never wished to enter the palace in the first place, the consequences would be terrible. Losing favor and banishment to the cold courtyard would be the least of my worries. The Emperor might very well strike me down with one swing of his sword. Leora did not realize that I had told the Emperor every single detail the very day I stepped inside the palace. Mother tugged nervously on Leora's sleeve. Even the quiet Marchioness from Westhold paled, and whispered a sharp warning for Leora to hold her tongue. Your Highness. My own Marchioness attendant murmured to me. That woman has clear malicious intent. If those words reached the Emperor's ears. I saw the smug glint shining in Leora's eyes. It is quite all right, I said. Since she chose to bring this matter up herself, it saves me the trouble of leading the conversation there. The banquet commenced. As the highest-ranking woman in the harem, I naturally sat right beside the Emperor. Musicians played. The Emperor cast only a few casual glances out over the crowd. Then his gaze returned, fixed fully on me. I turned my face aside and forced a faint smile. What is husband staring at? He did not speak. After a long pause, he pulled me straight onto his lap. He leaned in and whispered close beside my ear. Is my beloved consort unhappy this evening? I pouted. I refused to answer. I wriggled, trying to sit upright again. Out of the corner of my eye I spotted him staring hard toward where the Westhold household sat among the guests. News traveled fast inside palace walls. Someone had already passed every word Leora had spoken straight to him. On my behalf. Halfway through the feast, ministers and their families raised their drinking cups one after another, offering well wishes for the Emperor. He tossed back his wine in one gulp. His voice dropped, sharp and icy. I see every minister here drinks freely. Why does the heir's wife from Westhold refuse to take a sip? Are you displeased with the feast I have hosted? Lord Kale, Leora's husband, looked deeply alarmed. He stood quickly and bowed low. Your Majesty, I beg you not to grow angry. My wife carries a child. Wine is forbidden for her. Please grant us your pardon. The Emperor let out a cold snort. Is that so? I have heard the heir and his wife share a deep loving bond. Now I see those reports are true. Lord Kale gave an awkward, tight smile. He was about to reply when the Emperor cut him off once more. Yet I also heard that earlier this very morning, your wife spoke disrespectfully within my consort's palace chambers and offended my imperial consort. I would like to know, on whose authority does she dare behave in such a manner? Does this come from the House of Westhold? At those words, every member of the Marquis household fell to their knees in terror. The Marquis himself pressed his forehead flat against the floor, his whole body trembling. Your Majesty, calm your wrath. We would never dare permit such insolence. The Emperor slammed his palm hard down onto the banquet table. I am not convinced. It seems to me she has grown far too bold. If she dares speak against the woman at my side, what else might she dare to do? Guards, tear out that loose-tongued woman's tongue. Let this serve as a warning for everyone present. Over these past months, the Emperor's behavior had grown more moderate. People had nearly forgotten he had once been a tyrant who ordered executions at the slightest provocation. Instantly, joy and chatter died in the great hall. A heavy silence fell. Everyone held their breath, terrified that even the smallest sound might draw the Emperor's rage onto themselves. Palace guards stepped forward, ready to drag Leora away to carry out the punishment. Your Majesty, show mercy. Your Highness, please speak up. This is your own sister. That desperate cry came from my mother. Watching her weep and beg for Leora filled my heart with bitter hatred. Your Majesty, I beg you to calm yourself, I said. I reached out and took hold of the emperor's hand. My eyes glistened with tears. I slowly shook my head. I am certain my sister spoke without thinking. She meant no harm. On top of everything else, she carries a child. Punishing her now would not be right. The emperor folded his hand around mine. The tension that had stiffened his whole body melted away. Since my beloved consort pleads for her life, I shall spare her this time. Before House Voss and the Westhold family could begin breathing easy again, the emperor kept speaking to wrongdoing must still meet with consequence. It appears the heir of Westhold allows his household to run wild. Even should he inherit the marquis title one day, his home will be torn apart by internal strife. It would be wiser to name the marquis' second son as heir instead. He shifted his attention to my father next. As for House Voss, your father has failed utterly in raising his daughters. He has shown reckless favoritism. He is relieved of his post as Minister of Revenue immediately. He loses 2 ranks, and his official salary will be cut for 1 full year. If a man cannot manage his own small family household, how can I trust him with the kingdom's treasury? Not a sound echoed through the huge banquet room. You could hear a pin drop. Father wiped cold sweat off his forehead and bowed to give thanks for imperial mercy. Lord Kale burned with resentment he could not voice. He too bowed. Yet the way he clenched his fists revealed how furious he truly was. I sneered silently inside. Leora, are you ready to face your husband's anger once these judgments were delivered? The emperor slipped back into his warm, pleasant demeanor. Slowly the guests relaxed. A festive mood returned to the hall. Only the tables for House Voss and House Westhold sat heavy and grim, as if they were attending a funeral for their own kin. The emperor looked over the crowd, then leaned close and whispered into my ear, "Does this make your heart feel lighter, my love?" I tilted my head and gave him a sweet smile. "Did you do all of this to avenge me?" He lifted one handsome eyebrow. "Can you not tell?" I leaned forward and brushed my lips softly against his cheek. "Just a fleeting touch. I can tell. Thank you, husband. I love you more than anything." A small twitch moved his brow. His gaze lingered on my face for a long moment, brimming with tender affection. My heartbeat quickened when our eyes locked. Yet I quickly pulled myself back to calm. History told us emperors rarely gave their hearts completely. I dared not gamble everything on the hope that I would be the one rare exception. That word later reached me through my handmaiden Cora. Stripped of his position as heir, Lord Kale poured all of his anger onto Leora. She was beaten until her face blackened and bruised. She lost her unborn child. That mother felt terrible grief for her favored daughter. She brought Leora back to our family home. She even swore she would support Leora for the rest of her life rather than send her back to that cruel marriage. As Cora told me every grim detail, old hatred surged through my chest. Why was it that we were both her daughters yet Leora received all her love, and I received nothing at all? I thought back to my past life. Shortly after I married Lord Kale, I had spoken a little too loudly to a handsome young page serving in his household. For that small misstep, Lord Kale beat me with fists. My body was covered in wounds. I returned home to beg my parents to stand up for me. Do you remember what they said back then? Mother shouted at me. How could I give birth to such a foolish girl? Even men need soothing when their tempers flare. If you cannot keep your husband happy, what good does it do to run home crying? Father said. You are good for nothing. I never expected your marriage to bring honor to this family. You have barely been wed a month, and you return beaten and broken. You bring shame on the Voss name. These were my parents. Across 2 whole lifetimes they had never once shown me kindness. Since they cared so deeply for Leora, I would make them watch her suffer far worse than death, while they struggled fruitlessly to save her. Section 3. Return to the Voss household. The day of Mara's 10th birthday came. I asked the emperor for permission to travel back to my old family home. He held me tight. He did not wish to let me go. You must not leave, he murmured, pressing his face into my hair. I spoke to him in soft, soothing tones. My little sister turns 10 years old. If I do not go home, no one inside House Voss will remember her birthday. But I hate to see you go, he said, his voice low and unhappy. I could not hold back a quiet chuckle. Who would guess that this emperor, whose name filled people with terror, could act so vulnerable? If husband hates to part with me so much, I said. Then why not come back to the Voss estate with me? With you there backing me up, I can finally call the shots in my old household. I cupped his face in my hands and blinked at him, hopeful that he hesitated for only a short instant. Then he gave my nose a gentle rub. You mischievous girl. Since you want it so badly, I shall grant your wish just this one time. And since it is your little sister's birthday, I must bring a worthy gift for her as well. Curiosity sparked inside me. What gift will you bring? He pressed his lips together, a mysterious glint in his eyes. I will not tell you. You shall find out when we arrive. With the emperor arriving in person, the entire Voss household was equal parts excited and terrified. Every member of the family knelt in a long line at the gate to welcome him. In front of all those watching eyes, the emperor helped me climb down out of our carriage himself. I spotted Leora in the crowd. She lifted her head just slightly and shot me a look burning with hatred. I let out a quiet scoff and walked straight past her, our faces nearly brushing. Hate me all you want. You still have to kneel before me. Servants carried my birthday gifts for Mara inside. When they laid out box after box, everyone's eyes went wide with shock. Chests overflowed with gold, silver, precious jewels, rare ornaments and the finest silk fabrics. Even Leora, the daughter who had always received every luxury, had never laid eyes on such riches. Mara threw her arms around me and would not let go. She knew I had returned to stand firmly on her side. The emperor watched us share that warm moment. He smiled, then cleared his throat gently. I also have a gift for the third young lady. Mara looked upward, eyes crinkling with joy. Second sister. Is it true? Does my brother-in-law the emperor have a present for me too? Complete silence fell across the room. Everyone stared toward me in total disbelief. Your Majesty, I said. What is this gift you speak of for Mara? I have not heard of it. The emperor nodded toward his attendant standing nearby. The man pulled an official imperial edict out from inside his robes. This document granted Mara the noble title of County Princess. I had told him long ago that of everyone in House Voss, only Mara had ever treated me with kindness. I had spoken of how Mara's mother had died at her birth, and how hard her childhood had been within our cold household. The emperor remembered every word I said. This title meant that no matter how much the Voss family disliked her, they were forced to treat her with the respect due a high-born noblewoman. I gazed over at the man beside me. Gratitude welled up inside me, tangled with complicated feelings. If he were not an emperor, perhaps we truly could have lived a simple, happy life just like characters in storybooks. Once the first wave of excitement faded, I pretended to just then notice Leora. I smiled brightly. Has elder sister come home to celebrate Mara's birthday with us? Leora gave a stiff, awkward smile. Yes, Your Highness. I have. I deliberately reached out and pinched the back of the emperor's hand. Did your husband travel home with you today? Leora saw the faint fingerprint left on his skin. She ground her teeth together, forcing a smile onto her face. My husband, I cut her off before she could finish her sentence. The emperor is here in our home today. There are things I wish to bring out into the open. Leora paused. She clenched her jaw. She looked as though she had made a desperate, final decision. Suddenly she dropped down onto her knees. Your Majesty, Lord Kale feels no attraction toward women. He beats me for no reason time and time again. I cannot go on living like this. I beg you, show mercy and grant an imperial decree to end our marriage. Leora wept uncontrollably. Mother stood close by, wiping away her own tears in sympathy. The emperor only glanced briefly at them, then turned his gaze toward me. What do you think, consort? A warm, calm smile stayed fixed on my face. In my opinion, this marriage ought to remain intact. One eyebrow shot upward on the emperor's face. Explain your meaning. My expression turned serious. Even though Lord Kale has strayed, my elder sister is not entirely blameless herself. At a moment like this, as his wife, her duty is to guide him patiently. She ought not rush to demand a divorce. Lord Kale is not completely unreasonable. If she comforts him and leads him down the correct path, I believe he can change for the better. I paused, then continued speaking. Beyond that, think of House Voss. Father was recently demoted and his salary cut for failing to govern his daughters properly. If word spreads that my elder sister seeks a divorce, the imperial censors will be kept endlessly busy writing reports. That would create difficult trouble for His Majesty as well. On top of that, even though my elder sister and I are both married, we still have our young sister Mara. If House Voss produces a divorced woman, it will bring shame not only on me, but it will damage Mara's future marriage prospects greatly. Father, Mother, would you not agree? You wanted a divorce. Leora, I would not let you have your way. Leora ground her teeth so hard her fingernails dug deep into her own palms. She stared at me with eyes full of venom. My heart soared. Nothing pleased me more than seeing her burn with hatred yet powerless to do a single thing. The Emperor nodded gravely. You speak the truth, my beloved consort. Every word you say considers both my interests and the good of House Voss. I am most pleased. He shifted his gaze toward my father, who still knelt there. Do you wonder why I have not punished you for deceiving the throne and swapping palace candidates behind my back? Father dropped flat onto the floor, cold sweat pouring down his forehead. Your Majesty, I acted out of foolish confusion. I deserve death 1,000 times over. Rise, the Emperor said, waving one hand. If Aloan had not begged mercy for you, your whole household would have been sentenced to death. Grandmother was overcome with fright. After staying only a short time longer, she complained of feeling unwell and hurried back to her private chambers. By the Emperor's command, Leora was escorted forcibly back to the Westhold estate by members of her own family that same afternoon. The Emperor still held state duties waiting for him back at the palace. I threw a small fit, refusing to get into the carriage. I insisted I wanted more time to stay with Mara. At last, he allowed me to remain for one extra day. Before he departed, he tried to leave several extra palace maids to watch over me. I declined. In the end I kept only my 2 personal handmaidens, Cora and Chuling. Night came. Mara and I chatted together in her room. Then Mother stormed in through the doorway. I saw her dark, furious expression, and I let out a mocking huff. Exactly as I expected. My dear mother had finally arrived to confront me over Leora. She shoved Cora and Chuling roughly out of her path. They had been standing to guard me. She shouted enraged. You know perfectly well how miserable Leora's life is in the Marquis household. Why did you stand in the way of her divorce? I rolled my eyes. Who put Leora in that terrible situation in the first place? That was all you're doing. How dare you come and question me? My words struck a raw nerve. Tears welled immediately in her eyes. Yes, if your father and I had never swapped your fates, all this honor and favor would belong to Leora. Everything you hold today was stolen from her. How can you treat her so cruelly? Do you feel no guilt whatsoever? Hearing these old accusations no longer stirred any pain inside of me. I looked back at her, filled with nothing but pity and disgust. Leora is your favorite child. You understand her character better than anyone. Do you truly believe she would be happy showered with favor inside the palace? That is nothing more than a foolish fantasy. You lie! Mother screamed hysterically. She shouted louder and louder as if volume alone could make her words true. Leora is 100 times, 1,000 times better than you. She would never be cold-hearted and ungrateful like you. The moment you gained the Emperor's favor, you forgot all about your parents. I burst out laughing. I laughed so hard tears streamed down my cheeks. Father, Mother, ask yourselves honestly. Do you even deserve to be called my parents? How have you treated me my whole life? And now you accuse me of being heartless. All I feel for all of you is hatred. I wish every last one of you were dead. Do you understand? I leaned in close and whispered right beside her ear, a smile playing across my lips. I will tell you a secret. I have known for a very long time that Lord Kale desires men, and I know he enjoys hurting people. That is exactly why I would never permit Leora to get a divorce. I want her tied to him forever, so he can torment her and humiliate her day in and day out. Just thinking about you forced to watch your beloved daughter suffer brings me immense joy. Rage consumed Mother. Her eyes turned bloodshot. She lifted her hand and struck me hard across the face. Smacked at the sound echoed sharp and clear. She had poured all of her strength into that blow. A loud buzzing filled my head. Everything around me grew quiet. I crashed heavily onto the floor. Warm liquid spread beneath my body. blooming bright red across the floorboards, that I caught sight of Mother's mouth hanging open in shock, her face twisted with panic. I saw Cora, Chuling and Mara's frightened faces. Their lips moved, but I could no longer hear their voices. That when I regained consciousness, I lay in my old bedroom back at the Voss estate. The Emperor stood beside my bed. He looked worn out, exhausted. When he saw my eyes open, he pulled me into his embrace, his voice thick with guilt and grief. This is all my fault. I never should have left you behind in this household. I was far too careless. That is why our child was lost. His voice cracked, heavy with sorrow. Seeing him in such pain filled me with guilt too. But I felt no regret for what I had done. Yes, my parents had given me life. But after 2 full lifetimes of suffering, I had finally met a man I wanted to give my heart to. I wanted so badly to build a happy future. Yet to settle scores with my family, I had to pay a terrible price, the life of my own unborn baby. My father and mother were charged with plotting to murder an imperial heir. It was a crime punishable by death. They were sentenced to be beheaded after the autumn harvest season. Once autumn arrived, they would have plenty of time to watch Leora endure a fate worse than dying. Grandmother fell gravely ill right after I was hurt. The news of my parents' coming execution crushed her spirit. Less than 1 month later, she passed away. 2 days before Mother and Father were set to die, I traveled to the Westhold Marquis estate myself to fetch Leora. She looked haggard. All of her old confidence and brightness was gone. Bruises covered her skin. Her left leg was permanently lame. The instant she saw me, emotion flickered across her empty face for the very first time. Have you come to watch me die? A cruel smile touched my lips. You will not die just yet. But your beloved mother and father will be executed tomorrow. I am here to take you for one final visit with them. Inside our carriage, Leora, who had sat silent the whole ride, finally spoke. You remember everything from our past life too, do you not? I chuckled softly. I neither confirmed nor denied her words. Leora broke into wild, tear-filled laughter. Inside the prison cell, Mother grabbed Leora's hands, overwhelmed with feeling. She fussed over Leora's well-being. She paid no mind at all to my presence standing right beside them. She kept begging me, over and over, to look after Leora in the days ahead. At last, Leora snapped, I always thought even though I could never match your beauty, Eloan, with Mother and Father's favor I would surely defeat you. I have lived 2 lifetimes. And I have lost both times. Always me. What is the point of your love, Mother? If you had not spoiled me so endlessly, I would not have grown up believing the whole world ought to pamper me the way you did. I would not have made terrible choices 2 lives in a row. You are the one who has brought all this suffering onto me. Mother never truly understood why both of her daughters grew to hate her so fiercely after that day in the prison. Leora learned to hold her temper. She no longer threw fits. The beatings from Lord Kale finally stopped. Not long afterward, guards found both Leora and Lord Kale dead inside their manor home. Each of them had a knife buried deep in their chest. As for me, 2 years later I conceived once more. I gave safe birth to a baby princess. When our daughter turned 16 years of age, my husband the emperor abdicated his throne. Our daughter ascended and ruled as empress of the realm. My husband and I left court behind. We traveled across mountains and rivers, wandering the world, enjoying freedom and joy for the rest of our days. And that brings our story to its close.